Major support for these programs is provided by Bank of America Merrill Lynch and Perfect Building Maintenance, New York Community Bank, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Greenberg Traurig, LLP, M&T Bank, Chase Commercial Term Lending. Additional support is provided by Briarwood Organization, Bruce Mosler, Capital One Bank, Cassidy Turley, C.B. Richard Ellis, Chelsea Lighting, Cushman and Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, DDG Partners, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, Friedman LLP, Accountants and Advisors, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Genova Burns and Gian Tomasi, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Centurion Holdings, Corman Communities, Madison Realty Capital, Margolin Weiner and Evans, LLP, Certified Public Accountants and Business Advisors, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Sterling and Sterling, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, the Wickoff Group, Urban American, and Ackman Ziff Real Estate, Ariel Property Advisors, Eastern Consolidated, Essex Capital Partners, Goldman Properties, Moynihan Group, Muss Development, RAL Development Services, the Spandrel Group, LLC, Rosewood Realty Group, Terra CRG, Triangle Equities.
So these statistics have been released that Manhattan rents have reached all-time record highs. Rents in the boroughs are reaching all-time highs. What's going on? Development finally is maybe back in New York City. So I've brought together 3 developers and 1 banker, because if you didn't have the banker, you couldn't have any development, to provide their insight on the state of the market. My guests, they include Jeffrey Levine, who's the chairman and CEO of Douglaston Development and Levine Builders, Jeremy Schell, who's director of acquisitions and finance for TF Cornerstone, Scott Alper, who's a principal at the Witkoff Group, and last but not least, the man who has the money, Peter Darcy, who's the first vice president, head of the real estate department at M&T Bank. So, man with money, you lend to these people? You would like to lend to these people? You think the world has got so much better? I know things are better, but what's happening?
We have not lent with Jeff yet recently, but that's on the plate. I'm sure we're going to get that done soon. And the Witkoff organization and TF Cornerstone are both great customers of M&T today. There's a lot of development going on in both Manhattan and in the outer boroughs. Long Island City, TF Cornerstone is doing most of the development there.
But, so my question is, you know, since I'm older than everyone here, I don't believe it. I look much younger than Levine. You know, I remember, you know, it was 2007, it was the happy days are here again, and then 2008, the world went a little bad, you know, and now it's all much better. Do you think, how long is this resurrection going to be there? How long do you think this period, I'll let you, after Peter says this.
I think the biggest driver here is it's a supply-demand imbalance. So there were a number of years where there was nothing built, and rents took a dip. There were a lot of incentives. It was brief, and New York stayed very, very strong. So today, there's just nowhere to go, and the rents are surging, and there's not that much on the plate. There's more condos than residential rental developments out there in the pipeline.
More condos than residential rental. Speaking of that, you have 2 condo developments. Tell me about that. Why aren't you why are you making them as condos as opposed to rentals?
I mean, for various reasons. One is the locations. The location substantiates condo development. You know, one is on Madison Square Park, so it's on a park, there's a limited amount of park space, and the highest.
Do you give him a voucher for Shake Shack?
Of course. I tried to make that deal with Madison Square Park Conservancy just for myself to donate money. They wouldn't even give that to me. But no, in all seriousness, our feeling on condo development is when you can build for significant margin. We're not big believers in the condo market where you're building to make $200 or $300 a foot, but when you can make substantial margin, and one of our locations is on a park, there's obviously a finite amount of park frontage, and our other is in the West Village, which is a substantially supply-constrained market. There's only a few future development sites left there. It's on the water, and there's really, very little supply there. We feel it substantiates condo development, and and the significant margins for where our basis is all in with hard, soft, and land versus where we can sell out. Even in the worst, when the market was down in '09, there was still significant margins, but obviously there was lack of financing. Now financing is coming back on a very limited basis, I think just for certain developers with a track record, with a balance sheet, and also, depending on the site specific, and coming back to Peter's point, is there's going to be a supply constraint there because there's only a limited amount of lenders that are willing to finance condo developments, and so that just right there puts a governor on the amount of development that there will be in the near term.
With regard to that, Jeremy, you've done right now, you have 4 projects under construction in Long Island City, plus you have 1 finished condo. How do you see the lending market besides my friend Peter with regard? Have people gone back to the market the way Mr. Alper has been so positive about that money is flowing over with leaps and bounds?
I think it's a case, it's widely reported, and I think it's largely true, that it's a case of the haves and the have-nots, and fortunately for us, that we've been on the receiving end of a lot of demand to lend to us. We're building a great product. We have land at a very attractive basis because we've been able to do this over a long period of time, and and banks recognize that what we're building out there is very special and unique, and they want to lend to people who have that kind of product, who have track record, who have the financial wherewithal, and they're getting behind the right developers, and we're fortunate. So we actually have 3 projects that are currently under various stages of development. 1 is in the lease-up actually stage. The 3rd is on the 10th floor. And the 4th building will be going into the ground in about a month or a month and a half, all at East Coast, which is our master plan in Long Island City.
Now, for my audience, what's the price of the condos and what are the rentals running?
The condos, so the 1 condo building that we completed over a couple years ago, it's called The View. It's almost 70% sold, and those are. Right now, the pricing there is close to $900, $950 a foot. So we're doing pretty well there. I think that's unusual for Long Island City in general. I think this is a very unusual product for the market.
But the location is great.
It's on the waterfront.
On the water, but otherwise, the Long Island City market is probably between $700 and $750.
It's probably right, yeah. And as far as rents are concerned, we're in lease up right now on the first of the last 4 buildings at East Coast. And we're seeing rents there in the mid-40s, and now we're about 40% leased on the first tower, and we're leasing from the bottom up. So I expect that we'll do better as we start leasing the top units.
For my audience, what is a studio, and what would a 1-bedroom go for?
Look, our studios are doing better on a per foot basis than most of our other product, and I think that generally across the board that's how it works. And in 2 bedrooms, the rents are obviously strong, but they're probably at this point on a per foot basis, the 2-bedroom, 2-bath are not performing as well as the studios, but they're still very strong. In fact, what we expect is that the 2 bedrooms are going to be in very high demand out on the East Coast because what we're building there is a campus, a community, and all the amenities that are involved in building a campus community, such as a K-8 school that's going up next door, a high school going down the street, a library, the park. So I think we're going to get a lot more demand out of the 2 bedrooms in the future as the critical mass is built.
Becomes more of a community. Mr. Levine, Mr. Williamsburg, are bankers more willing to lend to you? I mean, most of the bankers that I know have this comment. Levine, no, they like you, but all joking aside.
No, absolutely.
Do you
If you have a project that makes sense and you have a significant successful track record as a developer, then finding financing.
They didn't read the website on you. Yeah.
Having said that, we're about to start a new 500-unit project in Williamsburg. Our financing is in place, and we're very excited about it. And for the same
Yeah,
reason,
but that's going to be a rental this time.
That's gonna be a rental.
As opposed to a condo.
Absolutely.
With the success of the Edge. And
I think that other than special situations for condos, such as Scott was referring to on Madison Square Park and the West Village, I think condos in general have fallen out of favor on a large scale, for the reason being the absorption period of a very large condo of something would have done 4 or 5 years ago, 400 or 500 units, can take many years. And the cycles have been coming fast and furious, and the absorption period is extended
but I thought
out.
I'd heard from the banker that he's been seeing condos, and you like condos.
On a smaller scale, I'm sure.
Well, we were probably the only, if not one of a very small handful that would finance a condo over the past 3 or 4 years. So since that was the case, we've probably seen every condominium request in the
But I'm not hesitant to do a
almost.
condo of 40, 60, or 80 units, because that's something which you can build quickly, market quickly, convey quickly, and then go on to the next deal. It's these larger condo projects which can take years to be absorbed, which subject you to cycles of the interest rates, of the economy. Whereas a rental is concerned, great case in point is my recent project, the Ohm, on the west side of Manhattan in West Chelsea. When we came out into the market in January of 2010, the world couldn't have been worse.
No, 2009 was worse.
Well, coming out into the market in 2010 was no great metzia, as we say in the old country. Having said that, we were able to rent up at roughly 20% below our pro formas, which you would think would be a disaster. And if you were selling condos at 20% below your pro forma, you would be out of business. On the other hand, fast forward a year, January of 11 right through till now, the first quarter of 12, and the market for residential rentals has caught fire, partially due to the fact that people were not anxious to buy condominiums because their fear of the market, their fear of housing values.
And also
they
the
needed to live
difficulty
there.
in getting mortgages.
And the difficulty in getting mortgages. Having said that, the rental market is the strongest we've ever seen it right now. The amount of product available on the rental market is de minimis, because with the end of structured financing, really latter part of 7 and 8, very little new development for residential rentals has commenced. So I think we have 2,300 units of new residential rentals coming onto the market in 2012. In a city of 8.4 million people, that's a spit in the bucket.
If you have a site that you can finance as a rent, you could do a rental or a condo. A rental is always going to be easier to get financed. The problem is the economics don't work to develop the rental. So for developers, condo is usually, for many sites today being acquired
Especially
today,
where land's traded.
the only way. I mean, land has been a hot commodity, and the financing. The one interesting thing going on the financing side on the residential space are the agencies. People don't have the confidence in the agencies on the takeout. So a lot of these large tax-exempt 80/20 deals have people have underwritten or gone in assuming they're going to have an agency takeout. That is getting dicier, and at least the sizing and the debt yield requirement is changing. So there is more equity going.
Well,
there
the
are
spreads
more
have
equity
gone through the
in on
roof
rental
going
deals.
forward.
Now, since both of you were at my banker's dinner last week, I think you heard Hugh Frater of Berkadia basically saying that he believes the GSEs are going to be out of business in a couple of years. So if the GSEs are out of business, you don't have any takeout from the agencies.
We will not do a rental construction loan that we wouldn't want to do the permanent on, and that we wouldn't want to hold the way we're sizing going and doing the construction loan.
And you have to do these 80/20s in Manhattan now because at the end of the day, without 421A tax benefits to buy without, you need the 421A tax benefits, especially where land's trading. I mean, it's hard enough to buy land on the island of Manhattan. To build rental today, we can't find it. I mean,
which is what makes waterfront in Brooklyn and Queens very
100%.
attractive, because you're still under the inclusionary zoning bonus program, can secure tax abatement.
Exactly.
But the real problem in the long term, because even those opportunities are limited, is to correct the taxation problem, so it makes sense to develop housing in New York City.
Now,
that-
you're
that-
fortunate in your deals. You have, what, 15 or 20-year
Yeah,
tax?
well, at East Coast, we have a pilot out there, and so we have what's like a 421A abatement there, but that was set in place a long time ago, and I think there are people who are still benefiting from 421A programs because they've put their foundations in a while back. so they have a sort of a more dated 421A program that's beneficial. In today's environment, you're absolutely right. You have to do 80/20 in order to get your 421A. You can't buy land cheap enough, even if you, on the island of Manhattan especially, but even in the inner outer boroughs, you can't really buy land cheap enough to make an 80/20 work. Okay, so you really have to you have to have land that's either been assembled over a long period of time where you have a low enough basis to justify your development, or you have to have some special play, and that's really why it's been so difficult for us and other folks who are more patient and aren't looking to top the market on just the current land value and just build a building for the sake of progress.
Now, it's interesting that both you and you were early players in residential in Lower Manhattan. How do you look at Lower Manhattan residential today?
Look, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I think today, I mean, we obviously did a lot of conversion, no different than they did. Today, you can't make conversions make sense without a 421G. When Giuliani put 421G in, and that was the impetus.
So here's I agree with you 100%. So Metro, what's his name, Berman, Metroloft is converting the AIG building without any 421Gs, without any tax credits. I mean,
you gotta. There's two answers to that. One is he's getting historic tax credits, so that reduces his basis. I don't know the economics of his deal, but I assume that's offsetting and reducing his basis to hopefully.
Yeah, but it's not. He's not going to be able to pass it.
But the other thing is
the end buyer.
He's obviously underwriting substantial rental growth in downtown. You know, we just sold last year 10 Hanover Square to UDR, and you have to take a view on where taxes are going, and make sure you got a lot of rent. You believe in a lot of rental growth, so you kind of can keep in check with your increase in real estate taxes.
Do you think TF will go back into? I mean, because you've been really leaders in that market.
You can't do a conversion. Well, we can't do a conversion, and generally the market has been able to sort of make the numbers work on a conversion without these tax abatement programs. So probably not until they reinstitute something similar to 421G.
The number of buildings that are available for possible conversion are somewhat limited. Many of them have been done. The other possibilities down there are full land under the 80/20 program because, again, of the ever-looming tax problem. And even those, many of the parcels are just too small to be efficient.
Now
right.
I
hear elevators.
I hear you with water views and everything. I hear you with parks and views. Now, I on a show the week before, I had one person talking about how nice it is in Rockaway Beach, and then I think about my growing up in Coney Island. There's property on the water, subway's not
Just
far
bring
away.
it closer to employment,
Right.
and give me a subway that can get you there, and you have a chance. But unfortunately, I've always felt that Coney Island, Rockaway, I don't remember which line it is. Is it?
It's the F line.
It's the F line. It takes forever to get there, and it's a real problem.
Have you looked at financing in Brooklyn? I know, I hear Manhattan, and I know about parts of Brooklyn, and I definitely know about Queens, but I didn't hear about, what's your thoughts about financing of a new residential rental or a condo in Brooklyn?
Well, we're doing a 80/20 project that also has a for sale component in downtown Brooklyn, a large deal. So
it's a combo?
it's a combo, and it's all about sponsorship capacity, and it's difficult to look at the absorption, especially on the for sale. And there was a lot of rental product in downtown Brooklyn if you go back a year or two. It's difficult to underwrite all of that today, but for a limited group of folks, we're willing, with enough equity and the right support, to finance those types of jobs today.
Have you, I know Witkoff grew up, he tells people in Riverdale or the Bronx, has he gone into the borough of Brooklyn? Is he allowed? Does he,
We've looked at deals in Brooklyn. We took over a deal for a bank about 2 years ago, a condo deal, and sold that out. But we haven't transacted in Brooklyn. We're actually looking at a potential rental development right now in Brooklyn, not on the waterfront.
To build?
To build, because we think the basis can make sense and it's a unique situation. But it's something that we just started looking at, so we haven't drawn an opinion to, if it's something.
You, Jeremy?
In Brooklyn? We've looked at a lot of properties in Brooklyn over the last couple of years. We're not opposed to going there. We haven't. Actually, the legacy firm had gotten their start out in Brooklyn, but we're not, we don't have a big presence there, but we do it if there were the right opportunities.
I don't want to put any salt in the wound, but you were one of the people interested in doing the deal at Aqueduct. With the racetrack, with the casino, the Racino idea. And I understand from reading an article that there are a lot of people have gone out on the subway. There's a lot of volume and people are going to the track. Do you think there would be any need, and this is a good point for anyone, you have a lot of employment over there, you have people over there, so maybe some housing, some workforce housing near the racetrack and the casino?
Well, I think you may know that, unfortunately, that part of Southeast Queens has been very much hurt by this economic downturn and mortgage defaults. So there is a very depressed value of housing out there. So there are housing opportunities for those people who are caught in the storm, so to speak. But absolutely, part of our business continues to be the affordable housing sector. We just finished one project up on White Plains Road in the Bronx. We're about to start another project just outside of Yankee Stadium on Southern Boulevard. And so long as the city can provide tax abatement and the necessary subsidy to meet the income targets for the low economic strata in those locations, the demand is overwhelming. I grew up in Brooklyn and Queens, and I always said, going into the affordable housing business, I've seen a lot more poor people than rich people. So there's a huge demand for affordable housing, and we always look for those opportunities.
So since I have three people who are developers, and developers, it's like a gambler in a positive way. You have to develop. You have to do the next deal. And we have the banker. Where is the next place that you can develop? I mean, would you think of going to Jersey City? Would you think of going into Westchester? I mean, would you think, you and I have been to Long Island and other events, in Nassau or Suffolk County. Where is the next place, and where would you feel comfortable financing? Scott?
I mean, I don't, it all comes down to just the economics. So, we'll develop in a market where we think you're buying the land correctly and we're comfortable around demographics and rents. I can't tell you, we're not focused on one sub-market within the tri-state area right now. We like Brooklyn, but it's all about buying the land at the correct basis and rents being there and taking a view on rents, because you have to obviously take a view on where you think rents are going. We're not seeing a lot of opportunity on a rental housing basis.
No one's brought up the place. It's called, you remember when they used to have a ferry to go to Staten Island before the Verrazano Bridge? Staten Island? Anyone? Have you financed anything?
We haven't done much in Staten Island. We don't see many requests from Staten Island. We have done quite a bit in New Jersey.
We're actually about to start a project in Staten Island in cooperation with the Metropolitan Council on Jewish Poverty. We're building an assisted living facility in the Seaview area.
It only took Met Council about 22 years to do this.
Very complex,
I mean, it's a great, that's with the 220, the bond financing,
but we're
224.
We're excited. We expect to close and start building there in June. And we have another component of an independent facility, which will be tied into the amenities of the assisted facility. So we're excited about that. And there are possibilities in Staten Island. There still are land opportunities out there. But as Scott referred to earlier, the rental values or the sale values aren't linked strongly enough to the cost.
But you just brought up a good thing. And I know you have assisted living in Arizona. With the aging baby boomer, with the population growing, and the fact that there are going to be more baby boomers and they're living longer, and people in the same way that your parents, even though they want their children and parents want to be closer by, has TF, or would you think of it? Would you think of going into the assisted living?
Yeah, look, I guess we know what we're good at, and we generally stick to our core knitting. We have a large commercial office building portfolio in New York and D.C. We want to do a lot more of that. We think we're good builders, and we identify the next market, and we sort of try to get in front of the trends in order to establish the right basis and sort of.
I know that.
I guess my point is, yeah, but we're probably not the right players to go into that avenue. Take that avenue.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an expertise. No different for us is, we focus on 3 asset classes. residential, multifamily and condo, office, and hospitality. Assisted living, and no different than shopping centers.
But hospitality and assisted living are basically the same.
Well, they are.
As Jan Berman eloquently stated to me a number of years ago on the show, he says, I am basically in the hospitality business. I got to have good food. I have to have good amenities because these people are paying me like $4,000.
There's one other component. I love the assisted living business. I've been in it for almost 20 years. I partnered here in New York with Lazard Frere under the Atria brand. I actually sold out to them some years ago and continued the business elsewhere.
And you and Randy moved into one of them.
But what I love about the business, is the high barriers to entry. You talk about its housing, its hospitality, but you left out one other important component, which is healthcare.
Right.
So you're providing all three. The barriers to entry are great.
I'm not talking about CCRC.
No, I'm not talking CCRC.
Banker, assisted living.
We do a lot of it throughout the bank. It's something we're very active in, healthcare finance.
Not healthcare. Assisted living is different than healthcare.
Well, we do it through our healthcare group, but I agree with you. It's not a CCRC facility. It's a different play.
One quick question with like a minute left. Interest rates. Do you think rates are going to continue to be this low? Because it has a major effect on everybody's business over here for the next 18 months or 24 months?
Yeah, I think for the next 18 months, rates stay relatively low.
Mr. Banker?
I agree. We forecast them to stay low.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with low rates through the next 18 to 24. It's after that that they become very concerned about the state of our economy, about our inflation, and about what is going to happen to rates.
But so here's a big comment. If rates go up and you take 5-year financing,
don't take 5-year financing.
No, but that's the biggest problem because the rents, may not keep up with that market.
Well,
so
if we have inflation and rates do go up, your rents will go up as well at some point.
If rents go up and construction costs go up, it's all going to go up.
There's a tremendous amount of embedded interest rate risk across the system today, and I think people doing deals today are probably underestimating it, and we've been saying that for a long time. But there's a lot of risk to get squeezed there. There's also bad inflation, not just good inflation, that can raise rents at the same time.
What do you mean by bad inflation?
Well, there can be inflation and interest rates can go up. You could have exogenous monetary events, things around currencies and other things that can lead to spikes in interest rates. That doesn't mean there's a corresponding rise in rents.
So I'd like to say, I think, we've given my audience a pretty good idea on what's happening with development. I'm happy that my executive producer, Mr. Darcy, brought together these groups because at least he controlled the developers by not being overzealous. And I'd like to thank Jeff Levine, Jeremy Schell, Scott Alper, and Peter Darcy. See you next week.
Thanks.